So, Matt, I was talking to a doctor the other day about how I can get over my fear of elevators. And he said that I just needed to take steps to avoid them.
I like it. It's cheesy, but I like it.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Graveyard. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Adam.
And my name's Matt.
Now, pull up a tombstone or settle into your casket and get comfortable because this is Graveyard Tales. All right, everybody, here we are again. Matt, how you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How about you?
Excellent. Yeah, I'm doing good. It's been a good day. I think it's going to be a good evening here in the graveyard. So, real quick, we want to say go check out the Podbelly Network. We're proud to be members of the Podbelly Network. It's podbelly.com. You can find a list of shows that you may not find in other places, spanning all sorts of genres. So go over there and check them out. We're proud to be associated with these shows. So go check them out at podbelly.com. We also want to thank tonight's sponsors, Diet Smoke and HelloFresh, and we will talk a little bit more about them coming up through this episode. While you're on the internet, go check out patreon.com/Graveyard Tales. You can become a patron and you can get, if you're a $10 patron, you can get the video versions of these shows and get kind of the behind the scenes talk that we do before the actual episode starts, which for this episode is going to be quite an interesting, long discussion. So go over there, sign up, $1, $5, and $10. Everybody gets a bonus episode a week, but our $10 patrons get the video version of the regular episodes. And our $5 and $10 get video versions of the Patreon episodes. So depending on what you can afford, depending on what you want to see, go over there and sign up, patreon.com/Graveyard Tales.
All right, Adam, let's take a minute and talk about one of our newest sponsors, Diet Smoke. Now, Adam and I have talked about the problems that we have with chronic pain and anxiety and sleeplessness. And sometimes taking, another pill is just not something you want to do, but you want to help with this kind of stuff. Well, Diet Smoke is a product that might be exactly what you need. So, have you ever taken, a gummy, an edible, and thought, God, I have no idea what this is going to do to me.
Mm-hmm.
I may fall asleep. I may be awake for the next 16 hours.
Right.
You never know. But with Diet Smoke, they have found a way to get you the exact effect that you want consistently in a simple to take and flavorful gummy. It gives you the most beautiful, balanced buzz every single time. And if you're looking for something a little bit stronger, Diet Smoke's Delta 9 gummies are exactly what you're looking for. I mean, Diet Smoke is made with Delta 8 THC, Delta 9 THC, or CBD, and it's all derived from American-grown hemp. They've got more flavors and 3 strengths to get the effect that you want. No more, no less.
That's right. And they've got a subscription option so that you can get exactly what you want when you want it. You can switch your flavors, select your strengths, add products, or skip a month. And they've got the 3 different the CBD, the Delta 8, and the Delta 9, ranging in strengths from that CBD, Delta 8, and Delta 9. So you can pick which strength you prefer, or you can try some of all of it and see which works best for you. I know for me, there's some that I would rather take at night to go to bed. Some if I'm, in the evening and want to just sit and relax and kind of mellow out. then I would take a different strain that's a little bit weaker. All of Diet Smoke's gummies are third-party lab tested to ensure quality for all the batches, and Diet Smoke is so confident in their product that if you're not 100% satisfied, they will give you your money back, no questions asked. Which,
yeah, I mean, you can't beat that.
No, you can't. You don't get that if you go to a brick and mortar store and try to buy Delta 8 gummies. They don't have a money back guarantee like that.
So if you deal with chronic pain, if you deal with anxiety, look, if you just have a stressful job and you need to find a way to relax in the evenings, go and check out Diet Smoke.
That's right. And you can go to their website, dietsmoke.com, and read their FAQs, and they explain a little bit more for you there. If you have any questions, I'm sure it has been asked and answered in their FAQs. So you can join us in enjoying these gummies if you would like, and we've got a promo code for you. All you got to do is go to dietsmoke.com, dietsmoke.com, and use our promo code GRAVE, GRAVE, and it will give you 15% off your first order.
Yeah, and that promo code again is GRAVE, GRAVE, at dietsmoke.com to get 15% off your first order.
Now, Matt, that's all I've got for the intro of this episode. I think I talked too much in the beginning before we started the main episode, but yeah, it'll be fine. So why don't you tell us, what are we talking about tonight, brother?
Okay, so tonight is kind of a fun one. We're going to talk about a haunted town, and we've done shows like this before. We approached Gettysburg like this. We've done a few others where we talked about so our Savannah show is like this, where we have multiple places in the town that reportedly has a lot of paranormal activity. Tonight we're going to head out west, and we're going to talk about Clayton, New Mexico.
Yep.
Now, we found out about Clayton, New Mexico by discussing doing a show about one of the particular places that just happened to be in Clayton. And as we looked, we noticed that Clayton had more. And then we found that in October of 2018, the New Mexico Department of Tourism proclaimed the town of Clayton to be the most haunted city in the entire state. So
that's pretty cool.
Well, we got to look into that.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we did. And so tonight, and the thing about Clayton, because it's out west, it's got some interesting history as a Wild West town.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, plays into the paranormal activity that they experience, which for the most part is a lot of fun. These are fun stories. They have been, experienced by lots and lots of people.
Wild West ghosts always seem to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
Every time you end up with a Wild West ghost, even if they're sort of threatening, there's still something fun or funny about them. Where if you look at like these old English ghosts, they're just terrifying.
Yes,
some of those in England, they're just downright terrifying.
Oh, yeah. I know. It's like this one will remove its own head and throw it at you and stuff. I mean, it's just, you're right. The European spirits are all, super creepy, and these out west are all, they may not be benevolent, but they're fun, and they're definitely fun to talk about.
Yep.
So let's look into the history of Clayton, New Mexico, and then we're gonna tell some stories about some of the places that you can visit.
All right. So as we always say, go check our sources down in the bottom of the show notes. You can find where we found this information, and you can continue the research if you'd like to. So check out the sources down in the bottom of the show notes. Now, the reason I say on this one that you can continue the research is because there is a lot of Wild West history about this town that I'm not going to cover simply for sake of time and your own sanity. So there will be stuff that I leave out. I'm going to skim the surface on some of the history here, but enough for you to understand what this town was, what kind of people were there, and the role it played back in the day, so that you can understand some of the hauntings that Matt's going to talk about. Now, this says, according to the United States Census Bureau, the town has a total area of 4.7 square miles, all of it being land, which that's not a shocker being in New Mexico. That's
right.
It's New Mexico. So most of New Mexico is land. Now, I know we're going to have a bunch of people yelling, no, there's lakes and rivers there. I know. I'm making a generalization about how sandy and deserty New Mexico is.
We're not complete idiots, but
no,
we're close.
We're close. We're semi-idiots. Now, Clayton has an elevation of approximately 5,050 feet above sea level, and it's located about 130 miles northeast of Amarillo, Texas, which I thought interesting. If you're here in Texas, you'll know exactly where Amarillo is, and then you just go 130 miles northeast and you run right into Clayton.
Yeah. Amarillo by morning.
Right?
Its song is in my head every time I see, read, hear about Amarillo. That's the first thing in my head every time.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't blame you. It's a good song. Now, as I was saying about it all being land, Clayton is considered to be in the Plains region of New Mexico. So probably Plains, like this is spelled Plain, or Plane, or Plain. Any plane you want. Plains region, the plain region because it's plain, or the plain region because most people only see it flying over the thing. What is that
I
flat?
caught where you were going. I thought, oh, Lord, is he giving us an English lesson today?
No. Just saying it's the plains region. It's pretty plain, or you only see it from a plane most of the time.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Now, we don't normally do this next part, but I ran across a few reviews of Clayton while doing this research, and I thought it would be funny to look at some of these. And Matt hasn't seen these reviews.
So if you're from Clayton,
yeah,
this is all in fun, okay?
Right.
We have no ill will towards Clayton.
Right, and I didn't write any of these. Like, I didn't write this. I found this. So if you wrote this, then you can write in and say, hey, I wrote that one. But if it's negative, I don't feel the way they feel about Clayton. I'm just going to say that up front. Now, this is a 2-star review from a former resident. It says, there is always houses getting robbed every day, which is bad for a small town. There is not a lot of opportunities to have in Clayton. Their school system is terrible, and teens have parties every other night driving around all night drunk. The cops are all right, and so is some of the food places. But the town is dirty, and most people are rude. I didn't feel safe with my child. So,
that could have been isolated to her neighborhood.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
I say her. I just assumed it was.
That could have been their street, just their street.
Yeah, just a street. But they had a few bad neighbors.
Yeah, they had some bad neighbors whose teenagers went and got drunk all the time. But I mean, I like the teens having parties every other night and driving around all night drunk, and then right after that is the cops are all right.
Yeah, cops are all right.
Yeah, cool. All right, so now we got a 5-star to make up for that a little bit. This is from a current resident. It says, Clayton is a small town in New Mexico, very friendly, family-oriented. A lot of the people in the community will give you the shirts off their backs if they needed to. They do not have much to do in the lines of entertainment, especially for the young ones. So 5 stars, even though they don't have much to do for young kids.
Yeah.
But
Here's the thing about kids growing up in a small town, they'll find stuff to do.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to say, if it's a small town, there's never anything.
It may not be the conventional stuff, but Kids will find stuff to do.
And in my opinion, that is the cool thing. Small town.
Oh, yeah.
The kids finding something to do. There's not designated activities. Let them go run and play in the creek. I mean, That's fun. All right. Now, this is a 1-star. So this is the worst one here. It says it's boring and nothing for the kids there. Nothing for the kids. There's nothing to keep them busy. The school system is horrible. It's not a good place to live. It's corrupt and just an ugly place to be. There was no punctuation. So I read it the way it was written.
So I always take these with a grain of salt. When I don't see hardly any punctuation or any at all. Mm-hmm. Because I think one of two things. Either they're just typing away and they're not even thinking about putting punctuation in there, or they're doing voice to text and that, they don't stop and pause for the punctuation and they're just blah, 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 just rambling. Either way, I'm kind of like, I don't really care what you have to say.
And it seems like for this one that the person is just pissed and they're taking it out on one little thing happened. And so they jumped online and wrote this review.
That's right. And that's exactly what it is. It sounds like a bad Yelp review for a diner where my eggs were too runny.
Mm-hmm. It took too long to get a refill. And so they're... All right. The last one I got, it's a 3-star from an unnamed. Doesn't say whether they're a current resident or former.
Well, yeah, it does. It says it's their hometown.
Yeah, but it doesn't say whether they're living there or...
Oh, okay. I got you. It doesn't say whether they're living there now.
Yeah. It says, Clayton is my hometown. Well, yes, I guess it does. Clayton is my hometown. I lived here all my life. I would like to see more job opportunities open up here. The only job here is the prison. It brings in new people to the town. Our only fast food place.
Yeah, it does.
Our only fast food place got shut down a few months ago. So, what caught me?
Every 3 weeks, we get new people to the town in the prison.
That's what caught me about this. Is the only job here is the prison, and it brings new people to the town. Yeah, it does. Do they release them into the town?
The people you want.
Yeah. Well, see, they bring them in, and when they get new people, they release other ones just into the town. Mm-hmm. And so we get new residents every 3 weeks. And my neighbor's awesome. He killed 2 men, but he's awesome. I mean,
he's better. I've never seen anybody any better with hedge clippers.
Yeah. Right.
Man.
All right. Well,
we're going to have to do that more often.
Yeah, I think so. If we do another town, I'll try to find some reviews. All right. Let's get back to Clayton here. This is from the Clayton, New Mexico Chamber of Commerce. And it says, the site of Clayton has been a crossroads ever since time began. About 100 million years ago, it was a dinosaur trackway on the edge of an ancient sea, and dinosaur tracks and bones are found throughout this area. The most impressive collection of tracks is at the Clayton Lake State Park, where over 500 tracks have been documented.
Hey, that's cool.
Yeah, I like that.
That's reason enough to visit Clayton if you're close by. At least for me, I'm a big dinosaur nut.
Me too. Me too. That just being able to see the tracks fossilized there would be amazing, because that tells you a lot about an animal is to see their tracks. So that's great. Now, this says that Native Americans began coming through the area at least 10,000 years ago. Many traces of their passing have been found, including various types of pottery, spear points, and even human remains buried in caves. Now, the area was rife with buffalo, deer, and antelope, which made it a prime hunting ground. Now, Clayton is a town and county seat of Union County in New Mexico, and the Cimarron cutoff of the Santa Fe Trail brought some of the first Americans through the Clayton region. The Santa Fe Trail was first established in 1821 after Spanish rule was evicted from Mexico, which opened up trade between Santa Fe and the United States. William Becknell, also known as the father of the Santa Fe Trail, became the first person to utilize that trail as a trade route between the state of Missouri and Santa Fe. He established the Cimarron Cutoff, also known as the Cimarron Route, as a faster route between countries, as the Cimarron route shortened the trail by more than 100 miles. It went straight through the Clayton region, where travelers used the Rabbit Ear Mountains there as a guiding landmark. So I want to look at the Santa Fe Trail a little more. It included that Cimarron route, which ran right through Clayton. So I want to talk about this Santa Fe Trail so you kind of get a sense of the types of people that would come through Clayton in its heyday.
Yeah. But this also gives you an idea that Clayton, even though it's a small town, it's historically significant. I mean, if you've done any study on the development of the Western United States, the Santa Fe Trail, I mean, that's a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I always find it interesting when you come across these small towns and then you learn, man, this little town is pretty significant in the history of the development of the West.
Yep. We don't remember it to this day, but if you go look back, it was a pivotal, either a stopping point for travelers or, somewhere people could get water on to make so they could survive the rest of the way or something important. So let's look at the Santa Fe Trail a little more detailed here. Now, between 1821 and 1880, the Santa Fe Trail was primarily a commercial highway connecting Missouri and Santa Fe, New Mexico. The route was pioneered, like we said, by Missouri trader William Becknell, who left Franklin, Missouri in September 1821. Others before him had been arrested by Spanish soldiers once they neared Santa Fe, and most had been hauled south toward Mexico City to serve lengthy prison sentences. Becknell, however, was pleasantly surprised to find that Mexico had overthrown the Spanish yoke, and the new Mexican government, unlike their predecessors, welcomed outside trade. So, not surprisingly, others got into the trade soon after Becknell returned, and by 1825, goods from Missouri were not only being traded in Santa Fe, but to other points further south as well. Now, some traders used the so-called mountain route, which offered more dependable water, but required an arduous trip over Raton Pass. Most, however, used the Cimarron route, which was shorter and faster, but required knowledge of where the route's scarce water supplies were located. So if you knew that area, it would be better to take that Cimarron route. So most people took that route, which took them through Clayton. Now, from 1821 until 1846, the Santa Fe Trail was a two-way international commercial highway used by both Mexican and American traders. Then, in 1846, the Mexican-American War began, and a few months later, America's Army of the West followed the Santa Fe Trail westward to successfully invade Mexico. After the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo ended the war in 1848, the Santa Fe Trail became a national road connecting the more settled parts of the United States to the new Southwest Territories. Commercial freighting along the trail boomed to unheard of levels, including considerable military freight hauling to supply the southwestern forts. Now, the trail was also used by stagecoach lines, thousands of gold seekers heading to the California and Colorado gold fields, adventurers, missionaries, wealthy New Mexican families, and immigrants. So it was a busy hopping trailway at the time. It was a major interstate, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there was Clayton.
Yep, exactly.
And then there's Maud.
Now, let's go back to Clayton for a minute. Eventually, this says, travelers along the trail began to appreciate the rich soil around Clayton and the rolling green hills, which were perfect for raising livestock. Now, cattle ranchers and sheep herders established ranches in the area, though they were large and far apart. Now, that changed when the railroad came to the area, and Stephen Dorsey, a nearby rancher, received the rights to the area where the railroad ran. He soon laid out a town site. Clayton is named for a son of U.S. Senator Stephen W. Dorsey, originally from Ohio, who served during Reconstruction, and the town was established about 1887. The town was a livestock shipping center for herds from the Pecos River and the Texas Panhandle. So again, it still had, you got people shipping out cattle. And during the heyday of the cattle runs, if you got cattle coming in from the Pecos River and the Texas Panhandle, you're busy. And there's going to be a lot of people in and out of there. Now, this is in Clayton, there are thought to be underground tunnels. Now, these tunnels were believed to have connected to every building in Clayton at one point, but most have been sealed off due to safety precautions. Now, some believe it was for the alcohol prohibition during the 1920s, while others believe that they were created for a safe place during serious storms, such as the one in 1908 that completely destroyed the courthouse, and yet others believe that they were only made for maintenance of the buildings. Now, I had trouble finding very much information on these tunnels. It doesn't seem like many have taken the time to research or explore these tunnels, but keep in mind, while we're going through all this, there does seem to be a series or network of tunnels under the city that connects all the buildings. Now, we talked about generally the type of people that were coming through Clayton and stopping in Clayton and all that, but I want to talk about one person in particular that's going to come up in Matt's part of the research, and it will just kind of give you an idea of this town, this area, and this feller here. Now, we're going to talk about Blackjack Ketchum. Now, you may know that name. Yeah. You may not know why you know that name, but we're going to talk about him. Now, this says that it was April 26, 1901, when train robber Thomas Edward Ketchum, later known as Blackjack, was hanged in the town of Clayton. Now, the officials in Clayton were not that experienced with the practice of hanging criminals. Ketchum was the first one to be sentenced to death by hanging, and their inexperience would lead poor Blackjack Ketchum not dying in the usual manner from breakage of the neck vertebrae, but from decapitation because of the rope used for his execution was too long and as rigid as wire. All right, Matt, so here's the thing. It's summer. You're wanting to maximize every minute of daylight you've got to do something fun after you get off work, right? You want to hang out in the yard and play in the sprinklers, or you want to go to the park with your dogs and kids and run around. There's nothing worse than wanting to do that, but having to stop by the grocery store and pick up food because we all got to eat. And you got to take this hour or more out of your enjoyment and go grocery shopping and deal with the people there and deal with the prices of the grocery store and trying to figure out what you're going to eat and all that stuff. You can totally skip that. And all you got to do is order HelloFresh. And we have talked about HelloFresh many times, but we're going to keep talking about them because we love HelloFresh. And HelloFresh is a meal delivery service where you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. And you can skip those annoying trips to the grocery store, and you can count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. And that's the reason it's America's #1 meal kit. But you can choose from 55 or more weekly options featuring pre-portioned, high-quality ingredients picked at peak ripeness. And HelloFresh delivers fresh, quality produce from farm to your door in less than a week. so you can savor summer flavors right from your home, which is great because you don't know how long that head of lettuce or yellow squash has been sitting at the grocery store. But you do with HelloFresh. It will be to your door in less than a week. And you can select meals from Taste of Summer series that are sure to become everyone's new favorites, like the Old Bay shrimp and sausage boil and the family-style grilled steak lettuce wraps.
Oh, man. And what about those melty Monterey Jack burgers? That incredible.
I love those, man.
Promise. No matter how picky the eaters are in your house, HelloFresh will deliver something that they will absolutely love.
Oh, yeah.
I know last week we enjoyed our HelloFresh box better than I think any that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone was just really excited about the dishes that we had, and those melty Monterey Jack burgers were part of it.
It's that Taste of Summer meals, man.
Yeah, and it was fantastic. And my oldest prepared dinner every night. She loves it, loves the recipe card. It's fantastic. I mean, if you thought about it, but you're just like, I'm not so sure, go ahead, pull the trigger. I promise you will not regret this. All you have to do is go to HelloFresh.com/graveyard16 using our code graveyard16. That's GRAVEYARD16 to get 16 free meals, over 7 boxes, and 3 free gifts.
Yeah, that's an incredible deal. So if you want to join us, make meals easier this summer so you can spend more time enjoying the weather and playing with your dogs and your kids, go to HelloFresh.com/graveyard16 and use our promo code graveyard16. That's GRAVEYARD16. And you'll get 16 free meals across 7 boxes and 3 free gifts. Now, when the
before you get into this, because I know this story, if you were not all that experienced in something like execution,
right,
then why would you use a method that you just didn't know? I can't imagine, and maybe it was somebody smarter than me could tell me, if it was already mandated, as how people would be executed. You would say, this is going to be our form of execution. The government says these are the approved methods, and hanging, was one of those. But I would imagine you probably had more individuals in that town that could fire a rifle. Firing squad. I'm sure they still did that. I just thought it was curious. It was like, we hadn't hanged anybody around here in ever. And why don't we build a gallows and hang somebody?
Yeah, I think
it's like, why?
There's probably a couple reasons for that. One, like you said, that was the established method. That was, okay, this area, the way we do it, the most quote unquote humane way that we found is hanging. Okay. But there's also sometimes where I've seen the courts at that time would decide during your trial, sentenced to death by hanging, sentenced to death by firing squad. Where now you just get a death sentence and then they figure out, according to the laws and what's going on, what your manner of death will be. But then,
you can request it.
Yeah. Yep. So it was probably one of those things where that county in New Mexico had a thing where we're going to hang all prisoners sent to death. Yeah. But because Clayton had never had that, then it's still their method that they got to do. But they're how do I do this? That's not something that you tinker with. Like you tinker with changing the strings on a guitar. You tinker with recording a podcast and then maybe you get better. You don't tinker with hanging people. So You either have experience or you don't. You're not like, well, I was dabbling back in college with this, and I think I've got it figured out. That doesn't work that way.
And the thing too is when, especially in the Old West, when these people would be sentenced to hang, there was no lengthy, drawn out death row thing, a bunch of appeals, and they may get executed 30 years later. Yeah, it's tomorrow. So I can imagine them going, all right, who's good with a hammer?
Mm-hmm.
we gotta build this gallows.
Yeah. Who's got the longest rope in town?
And
Betty has the longest rope.
They weren't like on YouTube looking up how to build a gallows.
Yeah,
How to hang a man.
Can you imagine what list you would be on if you did YouTube that?
Can you imagine? They're over there, and one of them's got a smartphone, and he's just going and going and going, and they're like, have you found it yet? No, but I found this great game where I try to guess these words.
Yeah, right. I found this game where you slingshot birds at buildings. And have you been doing that for the last 10 minutes? Yeah, I mean, it's addictive. I mean, have you ever heard of Best Fiends? I mean, I just found... All right, let's get back to blackjack here. Now, it says, when the day came, the hanging was the biggest attraction in the entire area, with many people coming from far away to see the execution themselves. Now, Ketchum was soon to become the first person hanged for train robbery in New Mexico. However, it did not proceed as smoothly as they had planned. Now, the night before the hanging was scheduled, an official tested the rope with a 200-pound sandbag. We got to make sure it doesn't break. So he tested it with a 200-pound sandbag. But he forgot to remove it. So the weight of this bag made the rope as rigid as wire from hanging taut like that all night. It stiffened this rope out. So it's not flexible rope anymore. It's like pretty hard rope now. Now, this caused an immediate decapitation. Now, it said that Blackjack's headless body landed on its feet and remained upright for some time.
I wonder what some time is.
Yeah, I would like to know that. Were they sitting there for like 2 hours waiting for him to fall over, or was it like 30 seconds?
Yeah, and did he, when he landed on his feet, did he stick his hands up because he stuck the landing?
Yeah. Woo!
All the crowd holding up cards.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Yep. One guy gives him a 5, and they're like, why? And, he lost his head. His head. That's not perfect form. His head's not there anymore.
You've got to land with your body intact.
Yeah, exactly. Now we joke because it's not too soon. It's not too soon. It's just been a couple 100 years. It's not too soon. Now, they say that prior to burial, the townsfolk actually sewed his head back onto his body and then buried him in Clayton's Boot Hill.
Man.
Why you would go through the trouble of sewing it back on, I don't understand. You're going to decompose anyway, and it's going to come apart.
Yeah.
Putting him in a box and putting him underground. I mean, maybe they were just thinking if he came back as a zombie, he would at least have his head. We can do him that favor. But he wouldn't have to be the headless horseman, the headless train robber.
Now that would be scary.
Yeah. That's a good movie, too. Listen, Shudder, if you're listening to this, we will help you produce The Headless Train Robber, a story of Blackjack Ketchum's ghost.
That's right. That'd be great.
Or if any of our director friends are listening, we will definitely help you do that.
Yeah, be great.
Wouldn't it?
So you get a sense of what Clayton was like, and even
Dennis Callow.
Just Dennis
Callow, please hit us up. about the headless train robber, Blackjack Ketchum. Right. Matt can play Blackjack Ketchum. I'll play the guy that stupidly decapitated him.
I will stick the landing, I swear.
Head intact.
But let's talk about some of the haunted places that are in Clayton that would have given it the title, the most haunted city in New Mexico, or sometimes you'll see it's the scariest city in New Mexico. I don't know about scary, but there's some stuff going on. The first place we're going to talk about is the Hertzstein Museum. Now, the Hertzstein Museum is cool in that it has a lot of artifacts from and about the Santa Fe Trail, and a lot of history, and Adam went into that. So it's a neat museum. It's also interesting that a small town like this has a museum. You don't see that enough anymore, or that people actually know about it.
Right.
Because, museums are great, but they're also great for ghosts. Because, with so many different artifacts and the museum building was used for so many different things. There's bound to be a spirit that's left over or two. But it also makes it very difficult to try to pinpoint who it might be.
Right.
Because there's a lot of candidates for that.
Yeah.
But the museum staff feel that the main ghost that calls the Hertzstein Museum home is a, quote, sassy older lady. She's very sassy.
I like that. I like it.
Now, in 2015, there was a paranormal investigation group that claimed to have caught an apparition of a woman in white on video. The executive director of the museum, Victoria Baker, has also noted that the sound of disembodied, high-heeled footsteps can be heard in the kitchen area. And nobody that I know now wears high heels, but I can remember as a kid when my mom had on high heels going to church or whatever, and you could hear that distinct sound walking across the kitchen floor. You knew
clop, clop, clop.
Yeah, it was different. They had a different sound. And so that's the sound that people report hearing in the Hertzstein Museum. So it's very distinct. But just like I said, you don't see people in heels like that as much as you used to.
Except sassy old lady ghost.
Except sassy old ladies, Now, Victoria Baker goes on to say, quote, I think that we do have some sort of unknown spirits here, and you think about if every item in the museum carries energy. So you never know what attaches to things here in the museum. And she makes a really good point. You're getting historical artifacts, but a lot of times historical artifacts have a lot of energy because of the energy that surrounded the event they're part of, whether it's, clothing from a soldier, or it's pottery that was discovered, or a jeweled piece, something. There was some emotion, there was some energy, there was something that made this significant. It belonged to somebody very important, or maybe somebody that was historically significant and died tragically, whatever. So when you're in a museum, you get those things, and she's got a valid point that maybe something's attached to one of the artifacts.
Yep.
Now,
highly possible.
Future paranormal investigations have produced an EVP of a little boy's voice in a back bedroom area, which that's also pretty cool. You don't always pick up decent EVPs on these investigations. So that's pretty good. I have not been able to find where I could listen to it and understand what it's saying.
Yeah.
But supposedly it's out there. They've also, had poltergeist activity in the museum. There is a rattling noise that is either on or around the staircase. There's other noises that can be heard throughout the museum, but some visitors and staff have reported objects being knocked over when no one is around them. And those are very common things with poltergeist hauntings.
Yeah.
Because, like poltergeist means noisy ghost,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of noise, stuff being broken, all that stuff. So,
stuff thrown and
they might very well have got a poltergeist from an old pickaxe or something.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, the next place we're going to talk about is the Hotel Eklund. And this was actually the location that we were considering to do a show about, and then that's when we saw that Clayton had all these other places. We also learned through some additional research that the famous ghost story at the Hotel Eklund is the only ghost story that I could find
Right.
about the Hotel Eklund. But
Right. It would have been a really short episode.
yeah.
I'd have done a little history. Matt would have told the one story, and then 20 minutes later, we'd be signing off. So,
Peace out. So,
yep.
But since 1892, what started as a mercantile is now a 3-story sandstone boutique, hotel, saloon, and restaurant in Clayton, New Mexico, named the Hotel Eklund. Now, Keith Barris and his wife, Jeanette, and their sister-in-law, JoBeth Price, purchased the hotel in 2011, and it had actually closed in 2009, I believe. And they bought it to kind of revamp it. And Keith says when people ask about the ghosts, his response is, I tell them it's just an old building. An old building have stories. So, and I like that quote because I think that is so true.
Yeah. Yep.
But when you walk into the Hotel Eklund, one of the first things you'll notice if you look up is bullet holes in the tin ceiling. And this is a reminder of the hotel's Wild West days. And these are real bullet holes. They have not fixed them. They weren't done for decoration. They say that these are just the bullet holes that are left over.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
There's a few like old saloons or old hotels or whatever that have done that. And I honestly, I love that because that is history. It tells a story. It lets you know what kind of place this was. If you walk in and you see bullet holes from the Wild West, it almost transports you back to that time.
That's right.
And I love that, man. So if you got a hotel or an old brothel or saloon, don't cover up the bullet holes. Leave them there. People love it. Adam loves it. Let Adam enjoy it.
Now, the ghost story from the Eklund Hotel is about a maid named Irene who haunts room 307. And from room 307, you hear creaking floorboards, and this one is strange. Mysterious faces in the wallpaper. Yeah. And I couldn't find anything where I was like, does the pattern look like a face? Does it look like a face is behind it? I'm not really sure, but faces in the wallpaper is a new one. I hadn't heard that one before. But the legend says that Irene had lost a child. In her grief, she went to work at the hotel and hung herself in room 307. Now, Keith Barris, the owner, prefers to think of her as a benevolent presence. And he says one of his favorite stories is from the time a couple stayed because the wife had a terrible migraine. In the morning, she thanked her husband for the wonderful way he had caressed her head through the night because it relieved her headache. The husband said, "That wasn't me. You know,
I ain't touching you. That wasn't me.
But Barris says maybe she was touched by an angel. Or maybe there was a ghostly maid rubbing her head. I don't know.
Yep, exactly. It was a ghost physician that knew what she needed. You know?
Yeah. Now, the next two places we're going to talk about focus more around our buddy Blackjack Ketchum. Now, the Union County Courthouse. It was reconstructed in 1909 after a tornado took it down. But 100 years later, the courthouse is believed to host the spirits of many of the people that passed on, including Blackjack Ketchum. Because he died in front of the original courthouse and in the weird manner in which he died, they believe his spirit decided to stick around. Now,
I probably would too.
Yeah, why not? Now, the jailhouse where Blackjack was held is reported to be ice cold. Courthouse employees have reported sightings of Blackjack. Some have reported seeing full silhouettes and orbs surrounding them or even following them. So that's pretty neat. I don't know. There was nothing about any investigations that's gone on in the courthouse, but it is a courthouse and it's active. So that's probably pretty difficult, I would say.
Right. On the orb thing, you know, if you catch orbs in a photo, you and I both are on the same page. Orbs in a photo doesn't tell you much. It may tell you that the room is dusty, but it doesn't tell you much. Now, if you see orbs in person and the orbs follow you, that's a pretty good indication that it's not dust.
Right.
So if you're like, if you hear a disembodied voice rather than an EVP, if you hear it or see it in person, that's pretty good evidence that something is going on.
Yeah. Now, I understand everybody in the graveyard. I love you all. I love each and every one of you. But if you show me a photograph that is of an orb and you tell me we didn't see anything until we looked at the pictures later, I'm just going to smile and nod, because if you didn't see it and it showed up on a photo, there is about 99.99% that it's not an orb.
Right.
I mean, that's me. There is no kind of paranormal scientific research that says that. I'm just saying that because that's how I feel. That if you didn't see it and it showed up in a photo, then it's probably just, you know, it's dust reflecting light. You know, it's not an orb. But if you tell me that you saw it and you captured it on photo, or if you tell me that you witnessed an orb, even if you didn't take a picture of it and you saw it move around and you saw it multiple places, or you thought it was following you, I'm going to believe you. I mean, Adam's right. I mean, you know, you see that with your own eyes. That's impressive. Now, the last haunted place, and this one I found, those first three you're going to find on every site that talks about how haunted Clayton is.
Right.
But you got to dig a little deeper to find this one. So this is the Philmont Scout Ranch. Okay. It's in Clayton. It's like a Boy Scout resort kind of place. And, you know, old Blackjack, his spirit is a busy fella because he doesn't always stick around the courthouse. And several visitors to the Philmont Scout Ranch say they have had a run-in with Ketchum's ghost. Now, one camper recounts his experience of running into the ghost of Thomas Blackjack Ketchum. He said he saw the legendary train robber's ghost while he was there camping. It was near the Philmont Scout Ranch in the nearby mountains with other Boy Scouts. One area they decided to camp near was an abandoned gold mine that actually served as Ketchum's hideout. The hideout was a large rock overhang, and the scouts thought it would be fun to camp there for the night. However, their leader insisted that they stay at a nearby designated campsite. So the kids were a little disappointed, and several of their scouts set their tents up several hundred feet away from the leader's tent. You know how kids do. Oh, I'm still technically in the designated place,
Right.
but I'm going to get as absolute far from you as I can. I'm going to push the envelope, and then, probably by the morning, my tent's going to be like 35 feet further.
I'm not touching him. I'm not touching him.
So the kids are trying to get closer to the hideout area. But it says suddenly one of the rogue campers, one of the ones that was over there getting closer to the gold mine, was awakened by a noise in the bushes. Now, the camper says that he felt paralyzed, unable to move, and he tried to call out to the others. But then he saw a cowboy dressed in all black come running out of the bushes toward the hideout. He said the man was mostly solid, but some parts of him appeared translucent. He described the man as filthy dirty with a tattered hat, clothes from the 1800s, and terribly yellowed teeth. So if you can describe colors like that, especially facial features, that's very interesting, because that's almost like a partial form, where you can actually pick up some details. Yep. And he obviously saw this for a decent amount of time.
And pretty close.
Yeah. And he says that his face was very red, and he was covered with sweat, and he had lots of facial hair. And he said he also was holding a revolver. Said the cowboy was apparently completely unaware of the scout, but they said the boy was really, really scared. A strange fog appeared from the tree line across from a small stream, and he could hear men yelling and then muffled gunfire.
Oh, wow.
The cowboy turned and fired his revolver 6 times into the trees, ran and stood right over the scout. And the cowboy appeared to be wounded in the shoulder and discharged 6 bullets from his revolver right on top of the scout.
Oh, wow.
Now, the scout says as he watched, the bullets disappeared as they fell onto his sleeping bag. The cowboy reloaded his revolver, fired additional shots into the trees, and suddenly the cowboy noticed the scout. Said the expression on the cowboy's face indicated that the scout had just suddenly appeared before his eyes. He seemed to be confused and confounded why the scout was so terrified. But then the cowboy uncocked his pistol, looked directly at the scout, and said, "You're not supposed to be here," and then disappeared into thin air. Now,
holy crap.
Yeah.
You know what that sounds like to me?
What's that?
That does not sound like a ghost encounter. That sounds like a time slip.
I know it. I knew you that's where you were going to go, because that's exactly what it sounded like to me.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, because now if you just had the blackjack ghost, okay, ghost, like stone tape theory, he's replaying his deal. Okay.
Which when you first get into the story, that's what you think.
Right. As soon, though, as you said there was a fog and you heard distant gunfire, that's when my train of thought switched. And then it seems like they're at the end where he's still oblivious. He's playing out the scene. But then all of a sudden, the two universes, the two times collided enough where Blackjack saw the camper.
Mm-hmm.
And it was as Blackjack appeared to the boy in the same way just appeared to Blackjack. So what I was thinking, and I really wish we could find this out, is at some point in Blackjack's life did that happen? Was he standing in the woods and some boy just appeared in front of him? You know,
like
and
if
he
had
said,
ever told somebody that story.
Yes. And he's like, I was out there shooting, trying to get away, and all of a sudden, a boy ghost popped up in front of me.
Yeah.
And I spoke to it, and then he disappeared. Like, wouldn't that be amazing if we had that story from somebody and they were like, yeah, he told this story several times to his cohorts, and then, 100 and something years later, this boy has that experience, and that would be so corroborating to the time slips and the different timelines and universes theory that would just, I'm blown away.
Yeah, I know. So cool. I mean, that is crazy cool, but it made me think if the veil between, if that is a time slip there that was experienced, and if the way, you don't think about time as being linear. Okay.
Right.
And if that is a spot near Clayton where there's a crossover, or it's, the barrier is very thin, that might be a reason why this little town has so much activity, is because there's more energy there.
Right. Right.
So I don't know. I thought it was a really cool story. And
that is,
it has a lot of details, and it's very well written. So I think when you see a retelling of a story like this, and then a writer actually gets a hold of it, he wants to, the writer is more about telling the story than convincing you that it's true.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna dress it up, and they're going to make it appealing to the reader. So sometimes I just take that and I'm like, okay, understand I'm not listening to the kid's story. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm listening to somebody tell the story about the kid. But it's still very, it's a very neat story if he was able to see all of that. So I thought it was great, and I wanted to share it with everybody. But yeah, because it does spark a whole nother idea of maybe there's more than just a few ghosts in Clayton, New Mexico. And if there was going to be one of these spots, out in the middle of New Mexico, wouldn't that make sense? I mean, it's just, there's not a lot around there. Maybe that's for a reason. Maybe it's, there's a lot of desert around there for a reason.
And New Mexico and Arizona seem to be hubs for places like that, or, happenings like that.
You're exactly right. And if you dig into Native American myths and folklore, so much comes from the tribes in and around those two states. And you hear so many stories about skinwalkers and shaman and all kinds of things that happen right around there. I mean, it really makes you think maybe there's a lot going on at that spot on the planet that has produced these stories. So something to think about. But that is quite a bit for a little town, Oh
yeah. Yep. It really is.
I mean, we're not talking about somewhere like Savannah, Georgia, a big town like that where, there's 36, haunted places, sure, it's not like that. But I mean, when you're talking about a town the size of Clayton, that's a lot of activity. You might be, it might be a really strange that they would have one ghost story that was famous, but to have multiples there, it's
under
cool.
5 square miles.
Yeah.
So to have that much in under 5 square miles is great.
Little bitty town. but really cool. And like I said, we had some fun at the beginning, you know, talking about the reviews and everything. You know, if you're from Clayton, you know, we're just having a good time. But if you're from that area, we would love to hear from you, because I guarantee you, I was only able to scratch the surface with some of these stories, and I guarantee you there is some really good stories from the folks that have grown up and lived there for a really long time. And we love to hear them. And, you know, one of the best places to share those stories with us and the rest of the graveyard is in our Facebook group. You know, it's a great place with great people, and no one's going to make fun of you. Everybody just wants to hear really good stories. And if you're in there, you're already into this stuff. So, you know, that's what you kind of look for.
Oh, yeah.
But you can also find us on Instagram and Twitter. Just go and search Graveyard Tales. Then you can slide over to our website, which is graveyardpodcast.com. And on our site, you can find links to purchase Graveyard Tales merchandise. You can listen to the show, and you can become a patron. And we talked about that at the beginning. We thank everyone who has donated to the show. It really keeps Adam and I going and able to continue to put out content, quality content for you guys.
Right.
So until next time, we'll save you a seat in the graveyard.
See you soon.